Sorry, how did you vote? It's just for the consent agenda. Okay, that's all in favor. Thank you. Before I make the proclamation for the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, I'd like to say that I think it's important we take the time on this day to raise awareness for persons with disabilities living in our region. We should always strive to be leaders in inclusiveness and in reducing barriers that continue to be faced by persons with disabilities. These community members often overcome considerable obstacles to make major contributions to our community. And I ask that on December 3rd and throughout the year, we all take a moment to recognize what they have accomplished. I also want to thank all those in our region working alongside persons with disabilities, whether at home, in our schools and healthcare system, with the social profit organizations, and otherwise. Your work is appreciated. And we thank you for all you do every day to reduce barriers and make our region a better place for everyone. And now read the proclamation for the Day of Persons with Disabilities. Whereas, persons with disabilities live in every part of our region and are an integral part of who we are in the Wood Buffalo. And whereas, persons with disabilities make a major contribution to the economic and social pulse of our region. And whereas, we all benefit if persons with disabilities are included in school, work, and social community activities. And whereas, the full potential of persons with disabilities is sometimes not realized because of physical, social, cultural, or economical barriers. Whereas, on December 3rd, individuals and organizations throughout the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo will focus on raising awareness of persons with disabilities and the many contributions. Now therefore, I, Sandy Bowman, Mayor of the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, do hereby proclaim December 3rd, 2022 as International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Moving on to presentations, we have the Wood Buffalo Community Foundation regarding the 2022 Vital Signs information. I'd like to invite Galen Wylick, Executive Director, to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me tonight. I am Galen Wadlick, the Executive Director for the Wood Buffalo Community Foundation. And we are a local foundation of donors. We steward over $5 million in endowed and spend down funds. And since 2017, we have granted about $1.7 million for social supports here locally. So like a heart monitor, sorry, I'm gonna scroll through this. So like a heart monitor, Vital Signs reads the pulse of a community and shares that data so we can make changes where needed and celebrate and reinforce what is going well. Vital Signs is a tool to bring people together, spark conversations, and increase civic engagement. It's basically to measure the progress and vitality of a region. As you will see in the report, and I have handed copies out to Sonia as well so that you guys can review it later. As you will see in the report, we have used a values-based framework which highlights aspects of our collective story. The backbone of this report is the 2021 federal census data aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are the international lens for focusing community data. I would like to briefly highlight 3 topics. Food security. Poor access and availability of nutritious food is a concern for most people, and only 43% feel that the opportunity to grow their own food is good or excellent. For example, the food bank usage has increased dramatically. Their latest numbers were recently released. 34% of their clients last year were children. Seniors in Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo. 4.4% of our population are seniors, and 14% of seniors here are living in poverty or low-income situations. And according to the federal census, less than 1/4 of people feel that our region is a great place for seniors to live. Finally, youth and child supports. 23% of our population is under 15 years of age. 1/3 of children have vulnerabilities in areas of early development. And the schools are seeing this with emotional regulation in children born during or immediately after the fire. So how can all of us use this data to collectively move forward to improve food security, to support our seniors and our children? But this is not all doom and gloom. There are many positives highlighted throughout in this report as well. And I encourage you to read through those and share those with the population. So how do we keep all of this information current and relevant? That is where the Vital Signs Data Hub comes in. This is the place where the data lives and where we track our progress. vitalsignsfmwb.com is free for everyone to use. And here's the exciting ingredient, local data. Our goal is to continue this work with corporate and social partners to add the most specific and up-to-date information from their research or surveys. I do wish to point out the RMWB administration has been very helpful in supporting this work of Vital Signs. We value their input and we look forward to continued collaboration. Over time, this provides everyone with a very clear, big picture view of our region and how we are all working together for a vibrant and healthy and just community. So the future plans. Our vision for this is Vital Recovery 2026. It's the 10-year anniversary of the fire. Imagine how we can share our story through the data of the whole region, including a Vital Signs report with rural and Indigenous communities. How we can share that story of where we started, how far we have come by what we have accomplished in 10 years, and the bright future ahead of us. This community needs to be proud of its story. We have an amazing and very big story to share. WBCF cannot do this alone, and we are looking for aligned partners and funders to assist with funding and sponsorship of this program. My request of council is this. I'm not asking for money. When you are out talking with community members and organizations, please remember Vital Signs and share its purpose with others. Encourage them to use the report and the data hub and to get in touch with us if they can offer support either through data sharing or other resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayleen. Do we have any questions from council? So I'm not seeing any.
Wonderful.
So thank you, Kayleen. Thank you for your community support and for sharing the information this evening. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Moving on to the next presentation, we have Mr. Matthew Eisentraut speaking on the topic of rural addressing within the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. I'd like to invite Mr. Eisentraut to present. And again, just a reminder, just a reminder of 5 minutes to present, Matthew.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Matt, so I'm going to be talking about rural addressing. I have a couple of slogans. Common sense, solution that does not work is not a solution. And my second slogan for tonight is real change, adopt a solution that works in favor of one that does not. I'm the owner of Surmont Creek Campground, and what you see there is you see three, we're on Highway 881. Everybody can hear me fine here? Okay. This is three ways of describing the piece of property there. But what you don't see there is you don't see any sort of a street address. And it turns out that in a lot of contexts, it's really handy to have a street address. I discovered this many years ago. My tenants would ask me, what's the street address here? The problem with not having a street address has been relatively minor for me personally because I happen to own a house in Calgary, so I have a street address there. So when I'm trying to get a credit card or do something with a bank or whatever, my driver's license, I have a street address in Calgary. However, about 5.5 years ago, my sister moved here and she moved onto the campground. And so she faced the challenge of actually trying to use her location of where she was living, which is the campground. And that turned out to be quite agonizing. It took her over a year to get a credit card, a Canadian credit card from PC, President's Choice. And it was quite the thing. Anyway, so 6 years ago, I actually started gently pestering the municipality for a street address. And 5 years later, about a year ago or so, we got one, and this was the address that they gave us, 84S-12868, Highway 881. The problem with this address, well, I have a couple of examples here. So what I have here is I have a screen capture of trying to type this address into a form online. And then what you can see is I'm unable to type it in because it's limited to 7 characters. Because in Canada, basically a street address contains at most 6 digits plus a letter. A second example of this problem is this TD application where they're asking for a street address. And you can see this street address here. I'm able to type it in, but then when you try and actually submit the form, you get all these error messages. And basically what the error message is kind of small type there, but it basically says no special characters and a maximum of 7 characters for the street number. Again, 6 digits plus a letter. So the address that we were given, the street address, has actually 9 characters, and it has, well, a special character, the hyphen there. In Canada, the hyphen is normally used to separate an apartment number, but 84S is obviously not an apartment number. I just took just to back up what I'm saying, I took a sentence out of the Alberta Municipal Affairs Addressing Project. This is a document from December 2004, and this is verbatim. Regarding the street number, there are no exceptions to the maximum 6-digit number. During the last year or so, the Willow Lake Métis Nation has been buying up the land adjacent to my campground, and they intend to buy me as well, which is great. I can retire. As a consequence of that, I've gotten to know their controller quite well. In fact, I hired his 2 sons as summer help at the campground. Anyway, so we talk about various things and about the various challenges that he has, and of course he has the same challenges as well, because they bought this property and they have a house on one particular property and they need a street address for that property, and so he asked for a street address. Oh, pardon me, I'm on the wrong slide. This slide, just to go back, just to give you an idea of how difficult it is to use the address as well, is when the RMWB did their census in 2021, the census people from the RMWB, they were unable to use the address that was given to us. They had to rearrange the letters, and they had to change the second line into the third line. Pardon me. Anyway, back to the Willow Lake Nation. So the address that they got for their property, for their house, was this 81-17S-211868, Highway 881. And then this is my address that's just below that. And looking at this address, like Michael, he sent me this address when he got it, and mentioned that when he took this to the Alberta Treasury branch, I mean, they said they couldn't use it. It's even worse than mine. It's got 2 hyphens and even more letters and whatever. The other thing about these 2 addresses is these addresses are basically for places that are side by side. Like the address, this top address is the next road over.
Sorry, Matthew, that's exceeded the 5 minutes, but I'm sure a lot of this will come out in questions.
Sorry,
But I'm sure some will come out in questions here. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I do have some questions for administration.
So, Councillor Stroud, we'll do questions with Matthew first, then we'll bring administration up to answer questions to administration. So I think Matthew probably has some answers on some of the things. Do you have a question for him, Councillor Stroud? Okay. Councillor Dogar?
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. You came here and presented your case. I have some knowledge about it, what I could gather. Sorry that inconvenience you have to face for many years. I would also recommend that whether it is rural or urban, we must have to be respecting our residents and trying to solve their problems. It's an old problem. I hope it would be solved as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dogar. Councillor Bussier?
Yeah, maybe, Mayor, you can let the presenter finish, because I think he recommends a couple solutions, I believe, in the end of his report. And that might be an opportunity for us, or Councillor Stroud, to ask administration if his proposals are doable or work in our community.
That's your question. We can let Matthew continue if that's your question.
Can I press this?
Do you want to? Yeah, you can answer his question then. Sure.
I just, can you bring the thing up again, or? Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, here's a street address. Once you go outside the municipality of Wood Buffalo, you see these all over the place throughout Alberta. These addresses have been made up by the Alberta Rural Addressing System. My sister, who's a professional engineer, she basically took the same strategy and she applied it to creating some addresses for us along the highway. And you can see the addresses. We have the Mark Amy Center, 86334, Highway 881 is just a kilometer east of us. Then you have my address would be that one, Surmount Creek Campground. The address of the property immediately across the highway would be 86 would just be the odd number, and then the address of this house that the Willow Lake Métis Nation has would be that next number. If you look here, here's my address here that we would assign using that system. It's short, unique, numerical, sequential, odd on one side, even on the other side. It works on any address form, and that's that was it. Sorry. I didn't realize
No problem at all.
How quickly 5 minutes went by.
No problem at all. And thank Councillor Bussier for bringing that up. Thank you. Do you have any other questions from council for Mr. Eisentraut? I'm not seeing any, so thank you. Okay. Councillor Cardinal?
So that's a registered, sorry, through the chair to Matthew. Nice seeing you again. It's a registered address on Google Maps. It is. Right. I just wondering, like, so is Mark Amy a registered address along with what was the other ones they put up there, or is it just reference?
Am I speaking? Yeah. So those addresses that I put up there, before that I put up there, those were just ones that we generated, my sister generated, just using the system that is used throughout Alberta. So those, I don't know what address that Mark Amy Center has been assigned to by the actual regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. It will be one of those things with the dash and the letters and stuff like that.
Okay, I thought they were existing addresses. That's why you're referring to them. Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Walkman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation there, Matthew. I understand your frustrations with the addressing. I live in a rural area as well, and I went through that many years, and it is hard to get, as you say, credit cards or anything because of the addressing. So I am in full support, and I will make the motion once it's up and ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walkman. Do we have any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it.
Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Stroud, do you have a question for administration?
Administration?
Just give Brad a second to get to the chair.
Thank you, gentlemen, and I know that we've worked on this before. So is the RMWB able to make the address for the Surmont Campground, for example, as 86412-Highway 881?
Through the chair,
asked for?
through the chair to Councillor Stroud, we could not make that adjustment. What you'll find is all of those addresses are actually in Bonnyville. They already exist. And that's kind of gets to the heart of what we're here to talk about or respond to questions on. The system that's being proposed cannot exist in our region. It's the rural addressing system that's administered by the province. It's predicated on townships and rural roads or range roads, and we don't have those in our region. We don't have numbered range roads, and so when you look at the manner in which the system is developed by the province, it basically breaks the system, the range roads down into increments as you run along a range road or a township road. And so essentially the system is divides each segment between a range road or a township road into 40-meter intervals. And so that's how you derive your civic address. And so because we're not afforded that opportunity here, and we spoke with the Department of Surveys through the province, we asked them about the theoretical road allowances that exist. So across our region, we have essentially roads that are undeveloped. We refer to them as theoretical road allowances until such time they might be developed. They are largely conceptual because they have not been surveyed. So they are they're not formalized like you'd find in areas to the south. So anyway, the approach that we took was the common sense approach, which allowed us to maintain consistency with respect to land titles. And what we did is we've taken the addressing system, we've developed it so it's based on the section, township, and range, or in this situation, we've taken the minor increments of the larger legal description, and we've divided the distances up by those, so we're still maintaining, I'll say, consistency with respect to the land title system. That's the best approach that we could arrive at, understanding that we aren't afforded the same things that are afforded to communities south of us. We've reached out to other rural municipalities that have both a balance of urban, so there's range roads and townships, and they use the system that Mr. Eisentrout has referenced. But in instances where the surveying has not occurred within their boundaries, they use a hybrid approach like we've adopted.
Okay, so the challenge is the lack of township roads. Is that correct, within our region?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, and range roads, that's correct.
Yes, I know it's a challenge, and you've presented to council on this before. So I do have another question, though. I did speak to a resident who lives on Highway 881. This gentleman needed to call an ambulance for his wife. He watched the ambulance drive back and forth by his property 3 times before they pulled in. So I saw a sign that you put up in front of the church on Highway 881 with the numbering system that you have. And I'm wondering if we can get that same sign put up in front of this gentleman's property, and would this help emergency services, because there would be a number on that home. Like the sign that you have for the church is right near the highway. Like I looked at it today, and and this gentleman's home is just on Highway 81 to the left. I'm just wondering if that sign can be put up on that property. And like, how did you decide to put it up in front of the church?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud. With respect to emergency services, sadly, it's a complicated matter. It involves dispatch, which is something that you would have heard our fire chief often advocate for, and there's been some changes at the provincial level with respect to how that's administered or handled. What I will say is that we have worked with our partners in regional emergency services, specifically fire. The manner in which they deploy response vehicles is through GPS coordinates. So if you're calling on a cell phone, they'll identify your GPS coordinates through your cell phone call. My understanding through speaking with them is Alberta Health Services does have the same technology and ability. But what you've described, unfortunately, that's unfolded for the resident is occurring in our region and beyond our region with dispatch and ambulance care. With respect to your question on signage, yeah, we'd be happy to look at it and see what was put up in front of the church. I'm not sure who put it up, if it was us or the church themselves, but we'd be happy to explore what that looks like and figure out if there's ways that we can identify or provide additional landmarks. So whereby dispatch would be able to be notified. My understanding in speaking with regional emergency services is landmarks in the rural service area is one of the actual tools that they use to identify where the vehicles are going to be sent to. So they're very, very skilled in that group, I understand, and that is one of the ways, in addition to pinging cell phone towers, is the way that they will dispatch vehicles. The other thing I'll say is when we're talking about rural addressing, we're talking about rural addressing outside of hamlet boundaries. We're not referring to rural addressing within the hamlet boundaries. That follows the conventional addressing system that we have in place.
Yes, I know we have a problem even in Gregoire Lake Estates between what Canada Post decides their address is and what the municipality decides. And we have the same problem on Highway 881 at the commercial. However, they do have mailboxes there, and as long as they all have the same address, 100 Royer Way, they get their mail. So, there is ways to probably work around getting their mail delivered, but I just would appreciate if a sign could be put in front of this gentleman's home. So it's just another way that we can ensure that, the ambulance doesn't go by 3 and 4 times before it gets to the home.
I just want to remind council that we're not discussing signage or EMS dispatch. Tonight we're just discussing the addressing. I think a lot of the problems go back to EMS dispatch, and we'll be meeting with the Minister of Health this week, and I appreciate bringing up those topics then with the Minister of Health, because I think that's where the crux of the issue is when it comes to EMS dispatch.
Yes, but we're looking for a sign, an address sign for this gentleman's property.
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, if I may, you do raise an interesting point with respect to Canada Post, and I do want to take the moment to touch on that in particular. Canada Post will not provide rural addressing in the context in which I've described. So they will not provide an address to rural properties. They will provide an address to properties, outside of the rural area, so within developed areas, they will provide addresses there, but they will not provide a rural address. So we even, our understanding in talking to some of the service institutions that were referenced here tonight, some of the challenges that they would have with respect to drawing on addressing from Canada Post is that the addresses simply won't exist, so you will naturally get some of those errors that pop up. We've reached out to institutions to confirm that, and that's what we were advised.
Okay, thank you, Brad. I know we've discussed this in detail in prior years, and I just appreciate you coming forward to say that we cannot make that address that's in the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Cardinal?
To the chair, to Brad, What's, I guess, for public information, I was just wondering, what's the difference between a range road and a normal, just like say the Tower Road? Is it?
Through the chair, the difference is that the range roads and the township roads, those are applied in the rural service area outside of the community. So Tower Road originates within the boundaries of Fort McMurray, so it does have a name applied to it. Specifically, the range roads and the township roads, they'll flow in north-south orientation. So the range roads are your north roads, and township roads are the east-west roads, following that Alberta township grid system.
So, and to my understanding, we don't have that in our municipality?
Through the chair, that is correct. We do not have developed or surveyed or numbered township or range roads.
Okay. So Matthew's property is out of the hamlet area. Okay. And then I guess my next question would be, like if we were to do to one church property or whatever it may be, one sign, it would have to be on every other community member's place that's out of the, out of the, you know what I'm saying, out of the hamlets or out of the rural or, yeah, the community, like McMurray or whatever, you know what I mean?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, admittedly I'm not familiar with the sign that Councillor Stroud had referenced, but we'd gladly look into it. I can't speak to it at length tonight, unfortunately. I'm not familiar with the sign itself.
Okay, like I understand though, but I'm just saying, you know, if we're to do it for Matthew, you'd have to do it for everybody else. You know what I mean? So it's not just I understand that it's Matthew's, you know, bringing this forward. So yep. I appreciate that, Matthew, and you know, it's something we really need to look at. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Weigel? No signs.
No signs. I won't talk about signs. So there's a sign. No, just kidding. Thank you. And this is just a pure educational piece for me as we go through this. Draper and Sapri are not considered hamlets, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, Draper is considered a community. That would be correct.
Okay, but Sapri is a hamlet?
That's correct.
Okay. So in results to, I guess, Draper, how did we come up with addresses for Draper?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, Draper follows the conventional arrangement because it's a singular road. It's easy for the system to generate that. It has this, you know, Garden Lane, Riverbank Close. There are other roads that come off of it, or arms, I'll say. But ultimately, something of that nature could be accommodated. When we're talking about the vastness of our rural area, the same principles just simply cannot be applied, unfortunately. And you know, even going back to one of the examples with respect to the census, the reason why we deviated on the census was not to accommodate Mr. Eisentraut's property specifically, but it was so that we could appropriately enumerate all of the different residents that were residing on that property and give them unique identifiers. So that was the adjustment that was made. It was to make sure that enumeration was respecting the unique identifiers of those individual campers who were living out there annually, not to make any adjustments for Mr. Eisentraut's property specifically.
Awesome. Two more questions. Just to clarify, and again, I apologize for my ignorance, the municipality does not have the ability just to assign any address they want to that. So you can be number 32 Highway 881. You just can't decide that as a municipality, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, essentially no. We had to, we wouldn't have created this system if we could have relied on the existing system that was in place. Right. That's kind of the basis of it. We needed to find a solution to address resident needs, resident requests. And so we needed to develop a system that was predicated on some form of, I'll use benchmark, and that's why we went back to the ATS system instead of trying to develop something that was not targeted to something specifically. So we had to develop a system that was consistent with what already exists as best we can, but we can't just randomly assign 1, 2, 3 Apple Street, and down the road it's going to be 1, 2, 3 whatever Orange Street.
Yeah, no, totally. Thank you. And last one, because I know that you said that you benchmarked against other municipalities that use the same system, so I appreciate that. Are we at the end of the road with the system that we're using then right now? Is this kind of our end result, or are we looking to survey or do anything further to create addresses?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, we don't do the surveying. The Department of Surveys with the province, they administer all of that. We simply don't have the authority to do so. We did work with them to better understand how we might be able to accommodate a different form of numbering or addressing. Unfortunately, the response that we got was simply that, because you're dealing with theoretical road allowances, you're not dealing with surveyed road allowances. This is the challenge that you're going to be confronted with. And other, to their advice and direction, they said, reach out to some of the other rural communities. They are also reconciling this particular issue as well.
Okay. So really, if we go any farther than where we're already at, it would be on the province.
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, yeah, we've taken this program, we've developed the program as best we possibly can to provide unique identifiers to the properties in the rural service area. Beyond that, we would need full-on development of range roads, numbered range roads, as well as township roads.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Bussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to Brad. One of the issues the presenter had was just he couldn't do anything online registration. Was one of the comments he made. Now, you had mentioned, Brad, that there's other communities that have the same situation as us. So what do they do in that case? Do you know?
Through the chair to Councillor Bussiers, I can't speak to the specifics of what other communities might do in that situation. What I can tell you is that we've reached out to franchise utilities. We've reached out to Canada Post. The addressing system will work in their systems, for lack of a better way of describing it. I can't speak to how other, I'll say, organizations have systems that track addressing. There are examples in the province that we've identified that have more than 6 digits, 7 digits. It's not unheard of, and so that's to the best that I can answer that question. I can't speak to their systems, but I can tell you that we did work with franchise utilities, Canada Post, and they can accommodate that system, although they don't register rural addressing at all across the province. Canada Post specifically.
Okay. Through the chair, Brad, so the addresses that Matthew had come up, or his sister had, you're saying those addresses would register in Bonnyville?
Through the chair to Councillor Bussiers, yes. If you verify those addresses, they come up just northwest of Bonnyville, in the MD.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Bussier, if I may just, we also weren't able to determine how those addresses could, if you use the conventional system that the province has here, our staff were unable to figure out how those addresses would relate to our region, given the manner in which the numbering system is developed based on range roads as well as townships, and that's what drove us to say, well, let's look into these addresses and find out where they are, and it brought us all the way down to Bonnyville. So hopefully that clarifies it.
Thank you, Brad. Councillor Cardinal?
I think I thought of a couple more questions, Brad. One of them, I guess, would be how. Let's say Matthew has an emergency, like Jane had mentioned. Is it a good idea that we have maybe planning and development to be able to provide EMS services, GPS locations for the areas to support the people living into these places? Like, you know what I mean? So I know that it's You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, if there's no address, so what happens if he has a heart attack and then we're 5 minutes late and he dies? You know what I'm just saying? Just a question.
No, it's a good question, Councilor Cardinal. I can take that. It's that question when you go back to our EMS dispatch, where it's being right now routed through Calgary mostly. That's one of the biggest issues, that they don't know our region. So they're sending our air ambulances as well as our ground ambulances to locations they don't know about. And most of them go by geographical things in the community as well as known people. Because right now, if you went to our fire department and you said Surmont Campground, you're going to Matthew's house. So that's what they go by right now. But the one of the biggest issues with our EMS dispatch is that. So that's a kind of a bigger issue than a mailing address at this point.
So I guess it's fair to say that there's nothing we can really do at this time, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, we've developed the program the best we can, given the framework that we're relegated to in our region. We don't have range roads, we don't have townships, so we've developed a program that we felt was based on our I'll say the common sense approach that was still associated back to land titles. So there's still some I'll say some common themes between the program that we've developed and the manner in which the province rolls out their rural addressing system. I will add, with respect to fire response, the fire department will use GIS. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is, but it's a mapping, basically mapping software. And they very much will follow the address that we have developed, and it'll take you right to Surmont Campground, as the mayor has kindly pointed out.
How many requests have we seen like this?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, we developed the program based on two, as far as we're aware of, 2 community complaints for seeking rural addressing.
And do we have a number on how many unidentified homes out of the hamlets and rural areas?
Through the chair, if I'm understanding correctly, we have issued 6 my apologies if I'm understanding the question. We've issued 6 addresses to properties that were not previously addressed.
But they were in the hamlets.
Through the chair, outside of hamlets, we've issued this addressing structure to 6 units, 6 dwellings.
So how is his any different?
Through the chair, I would suggest that they're not. They're applied using the same methodology, the same system. They are applied similarly.
Okay. I got no more questions, actually.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Grandison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair. First off, I'd certainly empathize with Matthew and the challenges. If I'm understanding correctly, you have an address system. It's just not always compliant, particularly with third-party users. It almost sounds like. So I just wanted to point out that I have trouble with third-party users, and I live in the city. And I have an address within the city, and I still have problems. I have problems with ATB and a few other branches, because they create these boxes, and if you have your information is outside the parameters of their box, it doesn't fit. But if I'm understanding correctly, you do have a system that is creating an identified address that can be located, that will work. It's just not always working with third-party users. Would that be accurate?
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, that would be a fair characterization, yes.
Okay. Thank you. So it is working.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Does anyone have any more questions for administration? Councillor Cardinal?
Are we? I just want for the record. Are we looking into what I was asking about with the emergency services with those locations?
EMS dispatch?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For the houses out of.
It's on my.
Okay.
Yeah, every
right
day. Every day. Do we have any other questions from Council for Administration? I'm Councilor Benjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for the clarifications. I still don't understand how we're going to resolve the problem that has been identified by the man that came. You have a system, but it doesn't work for him. So is that all we can do? Is that the only option left is what you've given to them, or?
Through the chair to Councilor Benjoko, prior to embarking on creating the system, we attempted to work with the two proponents that were seeking civic rural addressing. We attempted to explain some of the limitations that we've unfortunately are succumbed to in this region with respect to the manner in which rural addressing is delivered in the, I'll say across the province generally. The request was still that we provide rural addressing, so we developed a program that we felt relies on some of the logic that's applied in the provincial system. Unfortunately, it's to Councillor Grandison's point, it's maybe not consistent with some of the third-party corporations or businesses that may need to seek addressing. But unfortunately, the manner in which our approach, which is consistent with sort of the provincial approach, it just means that there's going to be that extra character. There's not a lot more that we can do. We can't reduce it by a character, unfortunately. Otherwise, it kind of, the entire model in which the system is predicated on would become kind of illogical. There wouldn't be any basis for how we're administering any addresses.
So this is a problem to solve, correct? Or?
Through the chair to Councillor Benjoko, there's nothing left that we're able to do with respect to solving it. We're happy to sit down with the Eisentrouts and talk to them further and try to maybe understand what the specific need is with respect to an address. If it's getting mail, then, obviously, as I mentioned, Canada Post isn't going to be registering the address for Surmont Campground for mail purposes. So if there's other reasons or other issues, we're happy to sit down and have that conversation. But with respect to the manner in which we're assigning rural addressing, we've developed the program the best we possibly can given the circumstances that we have.
Yeah, the reason why I said the last comment is that I believe these properties were approved to be built or to be structured where they are. So by the municipality.
Through the chair to Councillor Benjoko, that is correct, but we don't necessarily use civic addressing or rural addressing, I'll say, with respect to how development unfolds.
Okay.
I mean, up until 5 years ago, there was no rural addressing that was in place and plenty of development that's unfolded.
Thank you. I appreciate your response. I guess there's work to do in that part of our business.
Thank you, Councillor Benjoko. Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director McMurdo. It seems like a long topic about a few numbers, but I can appreciate Mr. Eisentraut's issues here, considering the fact that what he put forward to us in the presentation is that it says right here, address number is a maximum of 6 digits. His is 9. That other one is 13, I think it is. So it's obviously causing an issue. My curiosity is where the number is on his is 84S dash whatever. Is there a way we can drop a couple digits and still make it work?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, I can't speak to the other address. Off the cuff, to me, it looks like there was a discrepancy in the manner in which it was written down. I think the 84S was on the back half in the presentation as well, which seems that it's at a sequence. Nevertheless, we're certainly happy to sit down and have a conversation. But again, our system that we've developed is consistent. I'll say the theme of it is consistent with the manner in which the province is developed. So it's based on, the province is based on intervals, and our system is based on sections. So,
fair enough, but it's 6 addresses. There's got to be something that we can do. Are we looking at 400, 500 coming up in the future? I don't know. Well, you're looking at 6 right now, so.
Yeah, through the chair, to Councillor Ball, I mean, we can certainly explore that, but again, at that point, it would probably take away the logic that's been applied to the system itself, so.
Sometimes
you
logic
get into,
doesn't work. Oh, sorry. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Cardinal?
It's through the chair to Brad. Maybe can I ask Matthew a question? Do you have a postal code, Matthew? I mean, post office box number?
Yes, we have a completely different address for mail now.
And okay, well, yeah, because when I just wanted to clarify, because when I give a box number in Fort Chippewa, I'm able to get my credit card sent there. Right? I just wanted to clarify that, but also I'd still, I think that might be another rising issue, like for the future. So I'd like to make that make a motion if that's possible. Good. Ready? Okay. That I make the motion that the request from Matthew Eisentraut regarding rural addressing in the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo be referred to administration to review and bring back a report for consideration of council. Thanks.
Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Walkman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second that motion.
Councillor Cardinal, do you want to speak to that motion?
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair to community, I just figure that, you know, there might be more community members that run into this issue, and I think that that we have a little more, you know, areas that possibly could be developed in the future, and expansion to our municipality as well as some of the hamlets or rural roads if we need to. I think that just having the reference on from administration to be able to have a more in-depth look. I know that Brad and Chris have done a really great job. There's a lot of information on just the box number, so I feel that you know, him requesting this and you know, Willow Lake as well, to be able to have a little more benchmarking for my own knowledge, if possible, from how other places are really looking into it. I haven't had the time, or no, I haven't had the access, I believe, to the whole. I haven't actually requested, let me rephrase that, I haven't requested all of the information that possibly goes to the range roads and the difference between just, you know, a bush road, you know what I mean? So that's all I can say really about that. I just figured that, you know, he's requested this, and let's just honor it, and there's not going to be anything troublesome coming out of it, except you know, a little bit of time from us, and give Matthew a little bit of our time as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Just to clarify through administration, is there, of these 6 addresses, do they all receive their mail through a post office box? Do they all get mail now?
Through the chair, I can't be certain of that. If they're in the rural area, as Matthew's property is, I would presume they would use PO boxes, but I do not know definitively.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, if I may add, building on Councillor Cardinal's question, Canada Post, there isn't postal codes administered for these properties. So that's one point of clarity I think I'll touch on. And as well, as I mentioned, Canada Post doesn't register the rural addresses. So whether or not they get their mail through a post office box, I think that would probably be the standard approach, but I'm not sure whether or not they're set up for that.
Okay, thank you. And to your point, if Canada Post hasn't given the post office or a postal code to these addresses, we can't, as a municipality, give a postal code to these addresses.
Through the chair to the mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. And can you explain what 84S-12868 actually stands for?
Through the chair, that is a derivative stemming from the Alberta Township system, the grid system. It relies on references to the quarter sections, the sections, the ranges. It basically relies on that grid, and in a manner similar to the Alberta addressing system, it draws, as Brad has referenced, from a grid as well, where that grid has been broken up into multiple increments, and essentially, as Brad has said, that's the theme is consistent, but rather than relying on the township and range roads, it relies on the ATS system, the Alberta Township system.
The one through the chair to the mayor. The one thing I would add is the S is a directional indicator. So it depends on where the driveway's facing. If the driveway's facing south, then S would be the letter used to identify it. If it was facing north, it would have an N.
Okay, and as administration, after what administration has done and working with the province, this is the best formula that we can come up with at this time, working with the province for addressing in these properties?
Through the chair to the mayor, that's correct. Through working with the Department of Surveys, which is a provincial agency or provincial body, we reached out to other rural municipalities. They're adopting a hybrid approach as well, based on our benchmarking. This is certainly the best that we could arrive at, given, I'll say, bringing forward a logic model that's consistent with the provincial approach. It's the absolute best that we could do. And it's, I'll take a moment and say, it's not like we don't take any pride in making sure that our residents are frustrated by this. It's not our intent to frustrate residents. If there was an easier solution, we'd be all for it and willing to hear it. If it was certainly if it's based in logic as well, that it can be applied throughout the entire region, if necessary. Ultimately, we wouldn't want to create a system, and we'd like to rely on the provincial system that's in place, but it just isn't a system that's going to work here.
Okay, thank you. So this basically right now is the best practice we're using at the moment. Thank you. Councilor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, I'm just building on what the mayor, so if I understood that whole last part of this conversation, really, based on this motion, you're going to basically come back and say, yep, we've done that, here we are, because we can't control what the Canada Post does. We have to follow the rules that the province sets forth. You've already done your homework and created an address system. It's just not working with some third-party users. So essentially, you're going to go away and come back with, here we are.
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, we've been at this for 5 years. We've been trying to reconcile this for 5 years, trying to find solutions. Our report will very much identify the work that we've done over the past 5 years. It will provide references to what the provincial system, how the provincial system operates, just for contextual purposes for council. And we will also describe how we designed in the methodology with respect to how we designed our system and what the similarities are. So we would very much be sharing with you our work to date. Again, we're always willing to have conversations, and if there's ways to improve things, we're always willing to sit down and have those conversations. But again, we want to make sure that there's a equal understanding of the approach that we've taken, why we've taken it, and why we can't adopt the existing system that's in place.
So long and short, at the end of this, we're going to see your work, but it'll come out exactly the same as we are today.
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, that's correct.
Then it's a lot of extra work for the same spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Does anyone have any more comments or debate points? Councillor Cardinal?
You know what, now that, we've had that clarification again from Brad and, some debate points from, council, I'm okay with actually rescinding my motion. So I'm okay with doing that. So thank you.
Can you clarify, Councillor Cardinal, you're going to withdraw that motion?
Yes, after getting the information from our professional Brad, I'm going to rescind and take that motion back. Thank you, everybody, for your debate points, and much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Do you have any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, so I'll thank you very much, and I thank Mr. Eisentraut for coming forward. And if you could have a conversation with Brad maybe later and see what he can help you with that addressing. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to new business, we have a report on tax relief request, Everest Canadian Resources. I'd like to invite Laura Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer, and Kevin Navindi, Manager Assessment, to introduce the report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Laurie Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer, and with me this evening is Kevin Navidi, Manager of Assessment, and Chris Davis, our legal representative. We're here to present a request for tax relief, and I'm going to pass it over to Kevin.
Thank you. Everest Canadian Resources Corporation purchased an oil and oil sands operation from the receivership that has outstanding tax accounts from 2015. These properties were not producing from 2015 to 2019, but Everest successfully brought the properties back into production. On December 8, 2020, On December 8, 2020, Council passed a motion to defer taxes until the end of 2022. Everest was able to pay the 2022 taxes in full and also a portion of the 2018 and 2021 taxes. The total amount paid by Everest in 2022 is $798,208.24. However, due to COVID-19's impact on the economy, Everest has faced significant challenge to fulfill the payments as per the previous arrangement. Therefore, Everest is requesting that Council defer collection of the taxes and penalties now shown on the relevant tax accounts and further authorize cancellation of the tax arrears if Everest pays the tax assessed on the producing assets for 2018, 2019, 2021, 2023, 2024, and 2025 by December 31st, 2025. Normally, administration would not recommend cancellation of taxes. However, due to the nature of the assets, the return to the municipality by following the tax recovery process would be significantly less than the amount of the tax arrears, and if the production stops, there will be no future tax revenue from these properties. For these reasons, administration believes that agreeing to cancel tax arrears left behind by a failed company on the condition that Everest pays its taxes for 2018, 19, and 21 and ongoing forward makes good business sense, is in the best interest of the municipality and its taxpayers, and is equitable to both Everest and to the other ratepayers in the municipality. Accordingly, administration recommends that Council exercise the authority vested in it alone under Section 347 of the Municipal Government Act to pass the resolution set out in the administrative recommendation section of this Council report. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Do you have any questions from Council? Councillor Stroud.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. And this question is to the CFO. I'm not sure if you can actually do this, but can administration look at the financials of the company and possibly see the forecasted revenue and expenses for the years up to 2025 to ensure the tax debt can be recovered?
Okay. To Chair, to Councillor Stroud, I received the financials for 2020, and I had conversations with Mr. Mann, the CEO of the company, and based on the oil price per barrel, they are predicting if it's around $50 to $80, they will be able to pay this agreement that we are going to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor McGrath, you have a question?
Thank you, through the chair. I don't know if there's anybody around from the owner this evening, but it seems to me back a couple of years ago, this matter came before us, and the STP assets that were sold, I thought, and I could be wrong, I just asked administration, I thought that before the purchase that the old STP I guess, liabilities to the municipality were not in the deal, but I just asked for a clarification. And I don't know if there's anybody from Everest or present this evening, and if that's the case, I could hold that question, your chair.
Yes, if you want to hold that question, Councillor McGrath, a representative from Everest Canadian Resources will be presenting after administration.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Do you have any other questions of council for administration? I'm not seeing any. Just for clarification, these are not property taxes, they're asset taxes?
To Chair, to Mayor Bowman, these are actually property taxes. The taxes are on the assets of the property.
Right, okay, thank you. So thank you for your presentation, and we'll go to our presenters. Do we have any other delegates for this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have one registered delegate joining us via Teams this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Min, if you just state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes to present, followed by questions from council, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and the councils. And my name is Chi Bingmen, CEO of Everest Canadian Resources Corp. And we own this oil sand project in the Buffalo area. We bought this project in 2018 from receivership. Private owner is the Southern Pacific Resources. The year of 2018 was a very bad year for the energy sector, especially for the oil sands industry. And we take significant liability for the abandonment cost when we decide to purchase this project. And we fully understood that the first release and your council made in December 2017, that's 2.1 million. Currently, you talk about the 2.5. This includes some interest cost and from time to time. So this 2.5, this is the first release, as your council agreed, and before we make decision to buy this property. And at that time, we tried to recover this project other than take to the abandonment cost. And so right now, we ask another release for the property tax for 2018 with $507,989.06 for the following reasons. The first, for the 2018, is a partial year for us to own this project. At the very beginning, we asked your council to approve. At that time, and your meeting say, oh, this 2018 number we don't have yet. We cannot approve anything because we don't know the number yet. So that's the first reason. The second reason is your tax department manager mentioned, and so we pay about $800,000 in 2022, but the total payment we made to the Buffalo is $1,396,000, $336.23 so far. So this is close to 1.4 million. And this includes a full payment for 2022, 2021, 2020, and a partial payment for 2019 or 18. So third reason is we successfully restart this project for production. So this is very good news for our province to provincial too. And we will continue to make contributions to our local government for many coming years. And the fourth reason is we are working on financings to increase our production in the near future and make a more profitable project for our community. And for fifth reason is we have been facing more challenge for COVID-19. Number 6, so we take care of local community, include First Nation groups, and we donate face masks to Buffalo government office when it was difficult to purchase them from the market in the beginning time of the COVID-19. Number 7, and of course, we have a big challenge for the wide differential between WTI and WCS. This meaning is we sell our products for low price because it's a wide differentials. As a responsible owner in our community, we will do our best to make more contributions to our community. With your support, we will do our best. We will do a better project in our community. We appreciate your valuable time to listen our request. Thank you very much, and your question is very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ben. We appreciate your presentation. Do you have any questions from Council? Councilor Benjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for joining us. Thank you. So my question is, did you assess the entire assets of this company before buying it as part of the process to take over the company? Because that
yes.
would include both the positive ones, the assets, and the debts of the company that you were about to buy. Did you go through all that and you saw the complete picture and then you went for it?
Yes, and thank you for your question. And yes, and this when we buy these assets, and so we understood at that time is after is STP bankrupt, they own some property tax to the local government. And so that's the reason in December of 2019, and so your government and councils make the decision, say we cancel all these property tax. So after then, we buy this property in February 2018. Yes.
So you knew you were inheriting the debts and the taxes. You knew you were going to be responsible for the taxes, correct?
Yeah, before we make decision to buy, and your government released that the old property tax already.
So that means that it's not a surprise that you have to pay. That's what I'm trying to get your reasons. And thank you for all the contributions. By the way, thank you for the supplies to the workers here and communities. Thank you. But I'm saying it looks like you knew that you had to pay the tax. I just, for the benefit of everyone that is listening, we would like to know if you knew and then you saw that it was now going to be difficult, like most of us. You talked about COVID-19. The whole world went through the challenges, and some are still going through it. So I just wanted you to make a clear business case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I think is we answer your question, and so we know we should pay property tax to the government, And so right now, of course, we ask and you favor to support. And but our goal is make this project successful, and we can continually make contribution to our local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Thank you, Councilor Joko. Do you have any questions for the delegate? Councilor McGrath, do you have any questions?
I had a question through the chair. So just, I guess what I hear, the tax arrears, because I think this was my last council term, and I just want to be careful, I guess, with my question, but through the chair to the presenter, the tax burdens of over the 2 mil, did they wash with your deal from STP? You mentioned you had a meeting with local government. I was on that local government, and I'm just trying to jot my own memory. Were those taxes forgiven, the ones we're talking about today?
Sorry, that question is directed for the delegate, Mr. Mann.
Excuse me. So if the question for me, and thank you for the question. And so yes, before we buy this one, and this 2.1 million, so is canceled already from your council meeting in December 2017. And we buy this property after that.
I appreciate that. And one final question through the chair to the presenter. In the briefing note, you described full taxing machinery on an operation that was just running for a couple of months. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay, sir. I appreciate your time this evening, and I know that you've weathered some storms, and we've had a few oil sands companies that never made it, but there's some other people that pulled through. So, best of luck to you. Hopefully we'll keep her on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Any more questions from council for the delegate? I'm not seeing any, so thank you for your presentation, Mr. Mann.
Thank you.
Can I have someone make the motion? Councilor Cardinal?
I move that a collection of the 2018 taxes owing and associated penalties for late payment on the tax accounts identified in Attachment 1 in the amount of $157,989 be deferred for a period of 12 months from December 31st, 2022, and that collection of the 2019 taxes owing and associated penalties for late payment on the tax accounts identified in Attachment 1 in the amount of $494,915.34 be deferred for a period of 24 months from December 31st, 2022, and that collection of the 2021 taxes owing and associated penalties for late payment on the tax accounts identified in Attachment 1 in the amount of $236,655 be deferred for a period of 36 months from December 31st, 2022, and that taxes or tax arrears and associated penalties in the amount of $2,556,273.78 be cancelled without further resolution of council at the end of the 36-month deferment period in property taxes for those properties for 2018, 2019, 2021, 2023, 2024, 2025 are paid in full by December 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Could someone second that motion? Councilor Grandison?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Councilor Grandson. Do you have any further questions of Council for Administration? Followed by debate. I'm not seeing anyone else, but I have a question for Administration. Just if we did basically forgive this tax amount, and 2023 the business goes under 2024, are we still able to collect the taxes that are owed?
Through Chair to Mayor Bowman, this is a conditional forgiveness. So if all tax payments are made and all account is cleaned by the end of 2025, then we will forgive those 2015 to 17 taxes. Otherwise, and it's anything other than that, we should come up to the council and see if there is another agreement required or not. Thank you.
Okay, and the company Everest Canadian Resources didn't take ownership until late 2018?
I believe the Everest, the first company who purchased the assets from the Southern Pacific was Viceroy in December 2017, and part of the ownership was Everest is also partial of the owners. So they were aware of the taxes and they take the ownership, I believe, at the 2018. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Do you have any other questions or debate points from Council? Councilor Boussier?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to the presenter. So what's the total forgiveness we've given this company? Is it 2.194 million?
I believe it's $2.5 million. It was in council report.
No, council passed on. So what's the total forgiveness, whether it's Viceroy or, because Viceroy and Everest are probably the same company, given it's the same shareholders or some of the same folks. So what's the total forgiveness since 17?
Sorry?
What was the total forgiveness since they purchased in 17?
The total tax forgiveness will be, through Chair to Councilor Boussier, will be $2.5 million for including taxes and penalties.
And they're asking for how much more again, just for clarity?
No, that's the total. That's the total.
Okay, so in this report, it says that in December 2019, Council passed a motion to forgive cancel tax arrears.
To Chair to Councilor Boussier, that's correct. We had the similar situations. We had an agreement with the Everest company to pay the taxes by the end of 2022. They paid $800,000. However, because of the situations, economical situation, they couldn't fulfill whole payments for 2018, 19, and portion of 2021. Therefore, we are coming back to the council and asking to extend the payment agreement. Thank you.
I just wanted to add through the chair, this is a rolling target. There's no previous relief that isn't rolled into the 2.5. It's been a continuous return to council over a series of years to try and pay based on the current yield from the company. They've done a pretty good job trying to pay, and they seem to be doing better. And ultimately, it's a carrot. We're saying if you can continue to make the payments on time and in accordance with the agreement at the end of that time frame, then you'll get the relief requested. But until then, there is no relief. And it's always been the same number, maybe just growing a little bit with interest and penalties, but essentially they've always made the same ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Boussier. Councilor Weigel?
Thank you, Mayor, and through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. And again, just it's a clarification point. It's really just playing on what Councilor Boussier was saying. So we're just really extending the time frame that was already been forgiven. So this was already forgiven way back. We're just extending it because they were unable to meet the obligations due to the pandemic and other things, oil prices and everything through that. So we're just giving them an extension, as well as it just be noted, if somebody didn't read, they are fully paid for 2022 and have paid back some penalties as well, correct?
To Chair to Council Weigel, that's correct.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Do we have any other questions of council or debate points? I'm not seeing any, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? That's, sorry, Councillor McGrath, you just disappeared. Is that for or against Councillor McGrath?
That's for your mayor.
Thank you, sir. So that's carried with 1 against. We now have a report on 2022 request for tax and accounts receivable arrears write-off. I'd like to invite Laura Farquharson, again, Chief Financial Officer, and Kevin Navindi, again, Manager Assessment, introduce the report. We passed with 1 against. Button. Okay, this be quick. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Lori Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer.
Sorry, Lori, can I let the presenter go? If you, Mr. Men, thank you for participating this evening.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Lori.
My next presentation is the annual request to write off accounts receivable arrears. Account write-off policy FIN 080 guides the treatment of accounts of the municipality. Account arrears in excess of $3,000 per account and tax arrears that cannot be dealt with using standard processes are deemed non-collectible. To write off these accounts, council approval is required. Administration has exhausted all attempts to collect the tax arrears on 65 accounts as summarized in Attachment 1 of the Council Report. Total outstanding balance as of November 2nd, 2022 is $329,389.82. Administration has established a bad debt allowance for the property tax and accounts receivable arrears to be written off. If Council approves a write-off, there is no impact to the 2022 operating budget. Although an account is written off, an external collection agency will continue with efforts towards collection. Administration recommends the tax and accounts receivable arrears write-off, as shown in Attachment 1, in the amount of $329,389.82, dated November 2nd, 2022, be approved. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Stroud?
Woman and through to Lori. I was just wondering, when I look at that list, there's a lot of people that, you know, you've got it in brackets so that they've overpaid. I know that there's one large one there. Do you contact that homeowner or to let them know?
I believe you might be referring to the reserve bids, Councillor Stroud, through the chair.
No, I'm looking at the...
Did I get the wrong presentation?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's one of, 4,370.53.
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, could you repeat the amount, please?
It's on, well, when I look up the list, Lori, you've got it's under municipal property tax accounts / provincial leases.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one there 105,69130, 4,370.53.
Yes. So everybody has been contacted. From what I understand, all efforts to recover cost have been exhausted, and it's been referred to a collection agency. I would have to go back to the team to get the exact details. For privacy purposes, they don't provide me with the individual names.
Yeah, I'm just, when I look at it, when they're in brackets, that's a credit, is it not? And like the debit is like the 8,428.21 would be the largest one in that total owing.
You are correct.
I'm just, okay, so what I'm saying is, I understand that you work very hard to collect, but I'm wondering when someone has overpaid such a large amount, hopefully that individual or that account number is also notified.
Yes, let me take that back to the team, please, and I will clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Bussier.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair to Lori. Lori, the one towards the bottom for 315,000.
I do have some details on that. That is Forsyth Services, mud sump, and bulk water, which we have not been able to collect on.
Okay. Like the number seems fairly large. I have no idea what the billing would be a month, but like, do we have a number where we actually start trying to collect? Like, I'm assuming that we started to try to collect in this debt well before it hit 315,000?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay, so we don't know that? Okay.
I would need to take that back to the team. I don't know the exact timelines with the dunning and whatnot, but I do know that they send out billings monthly, and they do pursue with phone calls, and then if it gets to a certain stage where they're not able to collect, they refer it to a collection agency. So at this point, all of these accounts have been referred to a collection agency, unless it's an extremely small dollar value. And then we would do the write-off, and then if any funds came back, it would be an adjusting entry.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bussier. Seeing we're having some technical difficulties. Councillor Benjoko.
Mayor Bowman. So I just want to clarify that writing this off doesn't mean we won't take the money if we were able to get it through collections.
Through the chair to Councillor Benjoko, that's correct. It would be at a reduced value, though. If the collection agency is able to collect, they do keep a percentage of the funds recovered.
Okay. And there can't be like payment plans or anything like that?
At this stage, we've tried to establish payment plans, and it goes through various different gates of the process, and it's gotten to a place where it's deemed to be uncollectible. We've exhausted all efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions from council? Just one thing, Lori. Last year we had several properties, but by the time it went to auction, from what I understand, there was no properties remaining on the list from administration looking at other ways to collect from the property owners. So actually no properties was sold from last year's properties. Is that true? Or do you have that information?
That's my understanding. That's my next presentation.
Oh,
yeah, this is just the accounts receivable write-off.
Okay.
I know they're very similar, and it's the first time I've presented both, so through the chair.
Thank you, Lori. Are there any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. Can I have someone make that motion? Councillor Benjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that the tax and accounts receivable arrears write-off as shown in attachment number 1 in the amount of $329,389.82 be approved.
Have someone second that motion, Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I second the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or debate points of council? Not seeing any, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And any opposed? That's carried with 2 opposed. Next, we have the report on reserve bids and sale condition for tax sale properties. I'd like to invite Lori Ferguson to remain seated and Kevin Navindi, Manager Assessment, to introduce the report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Lori Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer, and with me is Kevin Navidi, Manager of Assessment and Taxation. This evening, administration is presenting the reserve bids and sales conditions sale for tax sale properties. Administration has exhausted all attempts to collect the tax arrears on 155 properties. The outstanding balance as of November 3rd, 2022 was $1,323,165.03. Since November 3rd, 2022, 6 accounts totaling $24,777.12 have been removed, leaving 149 properties totaling $1,298,387.91. The municipality must now proceed with a public sale. Under the provision of the Municipal Government Act, Council must establish reserve bids and any terms and conditions that apply to the sale of a parcel of land. The municipality will offer the following lands for sale by public auction in the Jubilee Building, 3rd floor boardroom, 9909 Franklin Avenue, Fort McMurray, Alberta, on Friday, March 31st, 2023 at 10 a.m. Under Section 418 of the Municipal Government Act, municipalities must offer for sale at public auction any parcels of land shown on the tax arrears list if the tax arrears are not paid by a certain date. The municipality can still enter into repayment of arrears agreements with the owners up to the date of sale if the owner does not breach the terms of the agreement. At this time, no new agreements for the payment of tax arrears have been reached. The reserve bids were determined by the assessment branch of the Financial Services Department and reflect market value by comparing sales of properties like the tax recovery properties. Attachment 1 details the reserve bids and conditions of sale. Administration will continue to contact property owners to reach agreements or receive payments until the date of the auction, whereby properties with established repayment agreements will be removed from Attachment 1. In 2021, with this follow-up process in place of the 45 properties approved by Council for tax sale, no properties remained on the auction list. Administration recommends that reserve bids and sale conditions be established as listed in Attachment 1, dated November 2nd, 2022, with the revision of the 6 properties I mentioned. Proceed to public bid. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm assuming as we go through this process that interest is accumulating on the taxes. Is that the only consequence that ends up happening? Or I guess what I'm trying to question is the way this is structured. If you say like last year, none of them actually made it to sale, it was resolved with the owner in some fashion. So the only consequence to the owner would be the added interest on the amount owing, or are there other related costs? Because obviously going through this process, administration incurs costs, labor and everything. Are those passed on to these folks during the resolution phase?
To Chair to Councillor Grandison, the cost that we have is basically that putting lien on the title. That one is passed to the in the process of the auction. Other than that, the teams, it's part of their routine process, the job description. So those are included already in the process.
So some of our labor costs related to their actual job that they do, but the costs of putting the lien on and stuff goes back to the property owner as part of the resolution.
To the Chair, to Councillor Grandison, that's correct. Also, we don't add interest. The only things is added is the penalties. Tax penalties is added to these properties.
Oh, we don't add interest to what's owing?
In MGA, we are not allowed to add interest. We are only allowed to add penalties.
So penalties in lieu of interest, so it kind of works out the same. Okay, fair enough, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering why the tax owing per property is not shown. I see the value of the properties, but not what they are owing. So it's a little bit difficult to know the correct picture of things.
To Chair to Councillor Bonjoko, usually the property addresses, like the legal description, is here, and also it will be easier to the other people to figure out which properties, who owns it. Therefore, for the FOIP informations, for the protection of the owners, we are not putting the dollar amount there, but we are in the total amount is presented to the council.
Okay. My second question is,
through the chair to Councillor Banjoko. So the municipality has certain dollar value that is owed plus penalties. We would go to market, sell the property. We would then take our portion to pay off what is owed, and then the proceeds would then go through a process, whether it be legal or go back to whoever's next on the lien or to the homeowner. So we wouldn't keep all the money. We would only keep the portion of the taxes owed to us.
Actually, that's my next question.
Oh, pardon me, I misunderstood.
I haven't asked it yet. I wanted to know the what's in arrears, what they are owing each property, but we don't have that information, and that's what I asked, not what they value. And then my second question was how if these properties are sold for the minimum, given the current situation in Fort McMurray today, I don't know, how are we going to be able to still recover the taxes, or where would the money go?
To Chair to Councillor Banjoko, usually because we take at maximum like 3 to 4 years to put the properties in the auction, the tax dollar for sure is much less than the property's market value in most of the cases.
Okay.
So therefore we will be able to collect our money. That's why we always say we need to follow the MGA. Even if we don't want to, we have to put properties in auction list.
Okay, and then finally, given the trend and history, how many of these properties actually get sold? And for the past year, I don't think any was sold. So what is the prospect? What can we expect?
To Chair to Councillor Banjoko, typically the mortgage companies are working and they try to pay. The owners comes and they try to come with the tax payment agreement. And most of the municipality is really working with everyone who is willing to pay these taxes. So that's the reason we are not seeing any auction sale.
Okay, and then my finally, if there's any of these owners, if they've applied for relief or there's any ongoing discussion, would they still be listed or no?
To Chair, to Councillor Banjiko, yes, actually they are properties that has been in this council and we are working with them to get an agreement. The reason is we have to put these properties in the auction regardless if they have been in the council or not. And the reason is that maybe the mortgage company is going to pay the taxes. Maybe there are other interested parties in the title that they may pay the taxes. And the third reason is that even if we have an agreement, if they breach the agreement, we need to be able to put these properties in auction for the sale to collect the taxes. Therefore, this step is required to put them in the auction list, but we may not be actually going to release this in the public sale. But we have to protect ourselves just in case if they breach the agreement.
Okay, so if even discussion is ongoing, it will go on the market first, and then if it's resolved, it could come off the list.
In some cases, we may not even go to the market. If we reach out to agreement with them, we will not go to market. If they breach the agreement, yes, then we will go.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilor Banjoko. Councilor Bussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through the chair to Kevan. How quickly could I get on that list? Like, are we consistent? Like, is it 2 years and then 3 years, 4, or do we just pick and choose?
Minimum 3 years. 2
Minimum
years
3?
and a half, yeah.
3?
Minimum 3 years. It could go 2.5 years.
Okay, how long could someone be delinquent and maybe not make your list?
That could be many years because sometimes it's not even feasible to put those. Like if there is a $5 very small property, it's not even feasible because the land title gonna cost at least $40 to put the lien on. So it may take 15 years for us to see if it's feasible or not.
So is there, through the chair, is there a minimum before we go?
To Chair, to Councilor Bussier, I believe $100 is the minimum we are looking to put in the auction list.
Okay, so we're not consistent though, really, with the way we handle this. We could.
We are consistent. I believe to $100 is the minimum that we may be putting those in the auction list. Yes.
Okay, I'm just, I guess, just more curiosity. So if you don't like me, but you like Ken, and we owe $3,000 each, we're 4 years in, are you saying you could just randomly start the foreclosure on me and leave Ken alone?
To Chair, to Councilor Bussier, no, we follow the MGA, all steps. These are all land-related tax auctions, and these are all under Section 411 of the MGA, and we have to follow every steps. First will be, for assuming you didn't pay your taxes, that doesn't mean these are in the tax areas. It needs to be past 6 months to go to the next year to call it tax areas. Then we need to wait another 1 year for tax areas to be able to even post those. During all this time, we need to contact tax property owner, everyone listed in the property title, everyone with any interest on the property, and make sure that they are aware that there is a consequences and unpaid taxes. After 1 year, we can start to put the property lien on. That's going to take another year. And after that, we will be here to produce the list of whoever didn't pay during these 3 years we go to the auction list.
Okay.
So we have to follow every steps in MGA.
Okay, so it's safe to say that probably all these properties have been in arrears for going on 3 to 4 years.
To Chair, to Councilor Bussier, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bussier. Do you have any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, so sorry, go ahead, Lori.
Through the chair to the chair, through to Councillor Bussier, I just want to make a clarifying point. I wouldn't want to encourage people to not pay their taxes, because there are taxes and penalties that will accumulate and compound. So it would be a very expensive way for a person to decide to finance not paying the taxes up front and then deal with it later, just so we're clear.
Thank you, Lori. And thank you for the presentation, Lori and Keevan. Do you have any other delegates to this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair, we have no registered delegates for this item.
Thank you. Can I have someone make a motion? Councilor Banjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that the resale bids and sale conditions be established as listed in attachment number 1 dated November 22nd, 2022.
Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Ball?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments, debate points from council? Not seeing any, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Hello? And against? I'm not seeing any, so that's all in favor. Thank you. Council will now be taking a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 8:05. Thank you. Thank you and welcome back, everyone. Our last item under new business is a report on the 2022 Q3 financial performance report, and I'd like to invite Lori Farquharson to remain seated again, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Lori Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer. Administration is recommending acceptance of the 2022 Q3 financial performance report as information. As of September 30th, 2022, the municipality is projecting a $13 million surplus at year-end. Revenues are projected to be $7.6 million higher than budgeted, and expenses are projected to be $4 million lower than budgeted. This slide is demonstrating the year-to-date operating revenues to September 30th, 2022, which are $433.4 million. On an annual basis, revenue projection is $578 million, which is an increase of $7.6 million over budget. This is primarily based on increases of $2.4 million in unanticipated grants, $1.5 million from an unbudgeted police services grant, and $0.9 million in additional federal community plan for homelessness, CPH funding. CPH revenues are transferred to community organizations, and therefore there is a revenue increase. The revenue increase has a corresponding increase in expenses, which is shown in transfers to individuals and organizations. Sales and user charges shows an increase of $700,000 and includes $400,000 under the industrial water and sewage services, $200,000 in residential garbage collection due to the increased number of residential accounts, and $100,000 in increased road traffic fees for oversized loads as a result of greater industrial activity. Increases in penalties and costs on taxes of $3.4 million are broken down by $2.4 million due to an error that we've presented to council in the past where the budgeting for property tax penalties was established. And we have $1 million due to higher than anticipated property taxes. This slide represents our operating expenses. The year-to-date operating expenses to September 30th, 2022 are $303.4 million, which is $30.2 million less than expected based on our year-to-date budget. The downward trend in current spending is primarily related to lag time in staffing, where vacant positions are at various stages of the recruitment process, and timing of invoicing for contracted and general services. On an annual basis, the expense projection is $436.8 million. This is a decrease of $5.4 million, which is under budget. This slide represents the capital spending. There's a few different variations to speak through here. The municipality approved the 2022 capital budget of $156 million. As of September 30th, 2022, the capital budget has been revised to $159.1 million, stemming from 2022 capital budget amendments. As of September 30th, 2022, $84.6 million has been spent on the delivery of capital projects. And this is demonstrated by the large circle. And then off to the right is representing the top three projects by spend, which are flood mitigation construction, rural infrastructure rehabilitation, and rural water and sewer servicing construction. This accounts for 34% of the total spend to date. The following slide is representing cash and investments. The current amount of cash in the bank plus investments total $1.34 billion as of September 30th, 2022. The commitments against this balance include $349.7 million for operating requirements,
$102.4 million in deferred revenue, which is money the municipality has received in advance but is committed to spend in the future, and $500.4 million in committed reserve funding. The municipality, with the exclusion of subsidiary Part 9 agencies, does not have any debt. The following slide represents the grants that we've received. So for 2022, the municipality has been awarded grants totaling $41 million during the first 3 quarters. This is comprised of $31.9 million in capital grants and $9.1 million in operating grants. Applications continue to be submitted as grant opportunities arise. Under our extraordinary events, throughout the 3rd quarter, the municipality remained committed to working with the government and other providers in relation to recoverable expenses. To date, the municipality has received $20.5 million for river breakup costs and $256.3 million associated with the 2016 wildfire. Administration is continuing to work with the province to close all DRP claims. The municipality continues to look for cost efficiencies while providing the programs and services as outlined in the 2022 operating budget. The municipality is positioned positively for financial sustainability while meeting the expectations of its residents. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Do you have any questions from council? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and through to Lori. Is the annual provincial municipality or municipal sustainability grant a large portion of our grant funding? That's the MSI.
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, I don't have that in front of me right now. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just think it's one of our larger grant funding, and I do know that there could be a decrease in that funding by at least 25% going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Do you have any other questions of council? Councillor Ball?
Thank you, through the chair to Lori. On the extraordinary events, there's, what was it, roughly 37 million outstanding. What are the chances we're going to recover that? I mean, wildfire, we're talking 6 to 7 years ago. And I think that's, what, 27 million, right?
Yeah. Through the chair to Councillor Ball, we, pardon me, we actually just submitted over $30 million to the province for our final expenses. There were a lot of projects that needed to be amazingly done because of there was slope degradation. They had to go back and redo some areas. So there's a section on Confederation Way coming down. All of that work that was done, that's an example of one of the projects that they had to go back and redo the work. So that was a submission back to the province. There was also a lot of work done on the salaries side of the equation where overtime was concerned. So those costs were also sent through to the province. So they've been submitted. We're just waiting for a response back from the province.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Do you have any other questions of council? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Lori. Do we have any other delegates to this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have no registered delegates for this item.
Thank you. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Weigel?
I move that the 2022 Q3 financial performance report be accepted as information.
Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Ball?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or debate points of council? I'm not seeing any. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to item number 8, councillor's motions. I invite Councillor McGrath to speak to his motion. Following that, we'll hear from delegates and questions of council, followed by debate points. Councillor McGrath, if you have it with you, you can go ahead. think it's Councilor McGrath, you're on mute right now, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just to refresh your memory, I know it's been a while. Move that the municipality of Wood Buffalo joins the 96 municipalities, stakeholder groups, and the call to action to the government of Alberta regarding the creation of the Alberta Provincial Police Service. That was the original motion. And I guess a bit of a preamble to that. Whereas the region and the province are rebuilding the impact of significant economic stressors over the past 6 years, that the region has enjoyed exemplary service from the RCMP as Alberta's police service of choice. I believe that we heard some of that in our last visit a couple of weeks ago at the RMA. And in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, the Commissioner's Calls to Action report, police and the justice system reform must be implemented with the full consultation of the Indigenous communities and peoples. I guess my motion is meant to just see that the rmwb joins the other 96 municipalities and stakeholder groups in a call to action. And I guess some of the talking points around that, the RMA, the AMA, both oppose the creation of the Alberta Provincial Police Service is great, and the RMWB has a distinct relationship with the RCMP. Like you can go anywhere in the Treaty Lines and Treaty 8s that are involved in communities. You know that personally the relationships are getting better. Certainly through the years, the 10 cultural events I've seen them firsthand. But basically, I'm just asking my colleagues to consider joining a growing with other towns and counties to support our police service the way it is today. And I believe the number at one point it was about 550 million on policing. And I believe we took some of that and put it into some precautions in mental health and some other stuff. We'd have a system that kind of heals in time itself. We're just asking colleagues to consider that. We can debate it, but I believe that we certainly enjoy the services of the RCMP in our community. And a few years back, without, I guess, council knowing, it was a bit of an undertaking and having our own force locally. I'd just like to ask my colleagues to support and sign on to the other 96.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. As you put the motion on the floor now, can I get a seconder for that motion? Councilor Stroud.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of council for Councilor McGrath? I'm not seeing any. Councilor Bajoko, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. My question is, did we find out why the majority of other municipalities are not joining this call to action?
Was that a question to me, Councillor Uncle?
Yes.
I honestly, as always, I haven't dug that deep, but what I can tell you, being a public servant for the last over 20 years, I guess in both capacities, the Indigenous communities in our region weren't really consulted at all in this process. So that's why in an unprecedented move, all treaty chiefs in Alberta joined together to oppose the Sovereignty Act, which a provincial force would be key to executing. So I believe the spirit of that, I wouldn't be able to answer your question properly, but if we missed a very important piece of consultation, I imagine that would follow suit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Majoko. And for clarity for council, the other 96 municipalities, and I think it's actually up to 99 now, are all for the RCMP.
I think the number will grow in time as, like, we found the last conference when we all get educated on what the I guess the outcome will be. I believe it's only proper that we join the majority.
Yes, thank you, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Cardinal?
I guess with it has to do with truth and reconciliation, and I guess my question would be to Keith. Have we reached out to the Indigenous communities to see if they were supportive of this before we actually move on the motion? I think that having the nations as well as other communities within our municipality, I think that it's crucial and beneficial that we actually seek the advice of the Indigenous communities before we move on some kind of a motion like this, because Truth and Reconciliation is based around Indigenous peoples of Canada and, of course, through our municipality. So I think we need to really look at having some sort of communication stream that's going to be, structured towards having the conversations with the Indigenous communities, because we got to see whether or not the Indigenous communities are for something like this, and yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I mean, I appreciate the motion, but I think that we need to look further into it, because without really acknowledging truth and reconciliation the way we've always spoken about it, and given the ability to the nations and Indigenous people of our communities, I think that we need to actually look at that first. So,
I guess through the chair, I really respect what you're saying, Kendrick. And there's a couple of pieces that would be a good read. Treaty 8 has not been consulted by the government on this proposal. And of course, I don't make this stuff up. You can Google that on CTV News, the chiefs of Treaty 8. And then all the chiefs in Alberta joined together, opposed this. And what this motion does actually bring some spotlight to growing say maybe it's administration driven, but whatever the case may be, this just qualifies that we need to do more consultation to the very people that are closest to, which I would believe be rural Alberta. In our case, it's all our region. We're a one-off. The RCMP usually good members, just like any organization. So this motion is actually to support opening up the dialogue, respecting Indigenous people, their wishes. And if we don't just join the growing numbers, something may happen that's provincial driven, but not just municipally accepted.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath.
Well, I understand. I still am in favor of getting and providing more information, as through the mayor and through all of us, to reach out to the Indigenous communities, provide them with a letter. Keith, if that needs to come from you or us as mayor and council, to send those letters out, meet with the nations. This is something that is going to affect them as well. So without their input and I guess communication, I think that I'm not willing to actually do something like this until all Indigenous communities are spoken to.
Yeah. Through the chair, that's exactly the couple of articles that inspired me to bring this motion forward. I didn't realize how much consultation that was missed along the process, and how far the provincial government has propelled this idea of provincial force ahead without the consultation. So I'm all for this motion simply because it addresses exactly what you're saying. So I guess that's why we're all here to vote on the motion. Passed is great. If not, we hope to keep a closer eye on it.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Oh, sorry, Kendrick. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Cardinal.
I just wanted to provide a little more. I just think that with something of this magnitude, without consultation to the Indigenous people and the rights of them, I think that through the development of legislation and the policies, I mean with more information to be provided to us as council, I just think that we need to have more information provided. I know that Keith, you might have seen a couple articles, but I think we need to really get into more in-depth information sharing ability from administration as well as the Indigenous communities, because for them to just go and sorry, I don't know if I'm off track or whatever, but for the change of the municipalities, the other municipalities doing this, I don't even know if proper consultation was done with the Indigenous communities. So us being at the forefront of truth and reconciliation, I think that we really need to honor that and provide some communication stream with the Indigenous communities. Myself, anyway. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. And just some clarity on the motion, to me, the motion reads that we're going to support the other municipalities that are in support of the RCMP and to ask the province to consult with the Indigenous communities. And I think the reason I think one of the points that the province has is that the province is trying to push this provincial police forward. It's not really, the municipalities aren't doing it. We're not pushing the police forward, as well as there's an agreement with the First Nations, I believe, and the RCMP that our provincial government can't override with provincial police. So even in our region, if the province went to provincial police, we would still have RCMP working at our First Nations. So that's just some clarity on that. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. And I appreciate this discussion because I completely read this motion completely different. Because I was definitely not in support of supporting the private police force at this point in time without a whole lot more information. And that's what I thought it was actually saying. But as I hear the conversation, it's more and more clear that this is in support of the consultation that ought to happen, the understanding of what the cost of a provincial police force would be, what the implications would be, and having all of that dialogue. Am I reading that correctly? Am I understanding that correctly now, that this motion is trying to determine that, correct?
Through the chair, that's 100% correct.
All right, thank you. That helps a lot, because I think even in terms of my colleague's comments, his reading of it might be similar to what I was reading it initially. In reality, this motion is supporting, I believe, everything that Councillor Cardinal just talked about. It's actually doing the consultation, supporting that the province is obligated to follow through and have the consultation with Indigenous communities and all affected parties in what it would look like, what the cost would be, etc., before this could ever happen. I believe that's the intent of the motion as I understand it now.
Yeah, I don't think people elect me because I'm smart. I just think that there's a situation at hand that previous councils have been educated along the way. So what you described, Alan, I really owe you $1 or $2, because that's exactly the spirit of the motion. And nowhere ever forget what lands we work off and benefit from. And this, I believe, we'll see another probably 20 or 30 municipalities at most, because most big cities affected by this. There was no consultation done. So yes, that's what triggered the motion. So hopefully, put it on the floor and we'll respect any decision that's made and live in support of efforts made.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Dogar, question?
Sir, thank you very much for giving me the chance. What I could understand from the motion that Councillor Keith McGrath presented, that the police has to be under the municipal affairs under the mayor. Am I right in this thing?
No. Councilor McGrath, this motion is in support of the RCMP and consultation with our First Nations and Indigenous communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Got nothing but respect. They were, they came from all across the country in 16. Anytime we have a catastrophic failure, so it's about putting our support into the service that we receive with the current structure, and if anything possible, how we can support that organization in a little bit of upfront cash and funds to address the real mental issues and concerns that keep people in harm's way, we'd say.
I have seen certain counties of the world where local police is under the guidance or under the supremacy of the city council, mayor.
Yeah.
And in this province, it is controlled by the province, and that is a better way instead of doing something else. If I have not understood it, please explain to me.
Truly, Chair, that's 100% correct, Dover. We'd like to keep what we have today, first-class service by the RCMP. That's the spirit of the motion. But if there was going to be any changes at all anywhere in the province, we'd like to know that the Indigenous people are heard and other stakeholders are heard. That's all this motion does, is to support ongoing list of people that feel the same.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Thank you, Councilor Duggar. Do we have any questions or debate points from council? I'm not seeing any. Do we have any other delegates for this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have no delegates for this item.
Thank you. And Councilor Benjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I just want to state that I don't know if there's what Councilor McGrath is looking at is, in my view, the quality of policing is what needs to improve, to be more respectful of the Indigenous communities and people of color, and treat everyone equally, and also to recognize mental health issues and work collaboratively with the mental health specialists to improve the way people are treated. I think that in my mind is what we need more than changing from RCMP to Abada Police, given the costs and even the fact that we don't have the manpower and all that. So I support that we maintain the current force, but continue to work to improve on policing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Benjoko. Councilor McGrath, do you have any closing comments?
No, I just I appreciate everybody's patience through the process. The intent of the motions is to support the system that we have. And like any organization, we have improvement. Until we're all gone, that's the only day we won't need to improve what we have.
Thank you, sir. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? So that's carried with one opposed. Now invite Councillor Ball to speak to his motion. Following that, we'll hear from delegates and then questions from council. Councillor Ball, you want to go ahead?
Thank you. Through the chair. The intention of this motion, I mean, I've heard a little bit of buzz about it, and the intention of this motion is just to look into options. We have some reaches in our flood mitigation that aren't complete yet. The province mandates that we build our flood mitigation to 1 to 100, and administration can confirm that. We've asked them, or not us, but this council, previous councils asked to build it to 1 and 200, and there's a potential cost savings if we just build it to what the mandated level is. And I mean, that's the intention of this motion. It's not looking to change things that have already been built, things that are already in progress, but those reaches like 6 and 2 and 3 and whatnot that that aren't complete yet is what I want to focus on.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Do we have any questions for Councillor Ball? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. I'm wondering if you can explain, I kind of heard parts of your explanation in the room earlier about the freeboard, your example of filling it to here, and if you move it, it'll spill over kind of thing. I thought that was a really good example that explained this, and I'm wondering if you could do it again so I can actually understand it.
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, I guess administration can answer this probably better than I can, but freeboard is basically an engineering safety standard that they utilize when building flood mitigation. I believe it's 1/2 meter. If you have a flood level of 249.9, you add 1/2 meter and you become 250.4. So it's kind of like filling your coffee cup up halfway, and you know it's not going to spill over the top. But if you get a little bit more till it gets to the top of the cup, then it obviously won't spill over unless you tip the cup to the side. I don't think the earth is going to turn on its side today, but I believe 250.4 would protect us to a 1 in 200 flood elevation, but not necessarily in an engineered built standard.
So that'd be filling the coffee cup full, but not tipping it over.
Right
Basically.
to the top.
Right to the top. So right to the top, meaning that 1 in 200, but no freeboard after that kind of thing.
No freeboard. And, you know, and maybe administration can confirm some of the dates, but I think our last 1 in 100 year flood was 140 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, 1870s, something like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Do we have any other questions for Councillor Ball? Councillor Benjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I just want to know if Councillor Ball has any idea of the cost differential. Oh, no.
I'm asking for that.
Okay, all right.
I would suspect that in reaches maybe, don't quote me on the numbers, but the west end of the Snai, there's potential, and administration can confirm this. We might already be at 250.5, so we might have zero expense on those ones moving forward.
I'm just interested in cost savings, and I was trying to see, but thank you.
Yeah, cost savings, but also making sure that we're protected to a 1 in 100 year flood as mandated by the province.
Yes, so I was reading it like the cost of either of them is going to be much higher, whereas the effect is the same, but I might be wrong. Is that correct?
We'll find out when they...
No, in terms of engineering works, is it same in terms of the protection we get?
Well, 1 in 200 would require more dirt.
Okay.
In theory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benjoko. Do you have any other questions for Councillor Ball? Councillor Dogar?
Thank you, sir. To the chair. Sir, about 12 years back, my family wanted to buy a house, and we were going in the area. And once we were considering apartments close to Home Hardware, one of the family members said it is a low area, flood area. We should not be buying the house here. Fine, good enough. If a new people like us could see this thing, this is a low-lying area. If I had been on a, responsible man before that, I would have never given permit, construction permit to Home Hardware, Canadian Tires, and few big stores like Sobeys also. So they should be on the upper places. Do we consider on these lines that we should forestall the events beforehand? Thank you.
That's not a question for me to answer. So.
No, somebody come from the administration can give me the answer.
Through the chair, I think, Councillor Dogar, you're looking at reflecting back on previous decisions about
development in the downtown area.
No, sir, for future, can we think on these lines? Though that was a mistake, that is done.
Yes.
But in future, do we consider these things?
Of course we do.
Thank you.
Hey, Council, have any questions for Councillor Ball? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Councillor Ball. Do we have any delegates for this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We do have one registered delegate.
Super. I'll invite. It's just Bryce. It's not just Bryce. I meant, is it only? So I'd like Bryce Kumka, please present. And just a reminder, Bryce, you have 5 minutes. And if anyone else isn't here, please state your name for the record.
My name is Bryce Kumka. Today button. I'm usually pretty good at being heard, but oh, that's better. Now the folks at home can hear me too. And we have that wonderful echo. So, sorry, again, my name is Bryce Kumka, presenting as a resident of the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. I think this is the 12th time I've presented on flood mitigation in the last 10 years. Maybe it's more. I stopped counting, really. I thought we'd really come to a good point in the discussions surrounding flood mitigation when the previous council made their decision to move beyond the minimum requirements of the 1 in 100 year flood. And I thought it was a real leadership position that was undertaken by that council to go to the 1 in 200 year with the freeboard allowances that were to be designed into mitigation. This is a conversation that this community has been having on and off since 1997. There's been a lot of time, money, resources invested in engineering, design, hydrological studies, and we continue to delay. We delay and we delay, and in 2020 we had a flood. We had a flood in the middle of a pandemic. That flood has significantly impacted the Lower Town site from a business perspective. As many of you know, I'm in the insurance business. It's very difficult to purchase flood cover. It was difficult to purchase it before the flood because of the lack of mitigation activity that actually had been completed. There was a lot of design, a lot of talk, a little bit of berm work here and there, but nothing consistent and to the liking of the insurers. So many of the largest insurers in Canada had been withdrawing systematically coverage prior to the 2020 flood, and they're not interested in providing coverage going forward. Unless there's significant action taken on mitigation, which would be a bold move, like going beyond the minimum standard of 1 in 100 year flood mitigation and going to the 1 in 200. I think it's an important move for the municipality to be able to maintain some business community in the downtown. In reference to Councillor Dogger's comment about the large box stores, they can effectively buy cover from an insurance perspective because they buy cover. From an insurance perspective because they're part of large franchise organizations. It's the small, locally owned, mom and pop, our neighbors are the people that can't buy insurance. The people that live in the townhouses and in the homes in the downtown, they can't buy insurance. And unless there's significant action taken by this council and administration to deal with this issue, we might as well just write off the downtown and just move on. Because if there's a continued regurgitation of this topic, it doesn't show the insurance industry that we have any commitment or faith in what we're trying to do. And if they have any good reason to not do something, they do it. So we're opening the door again to more doubt as to whether or not this region has a commitment to dealing with our flood mitigation concerns. And I think it's really not in the best interest of any of us to spend any more time and resource on continued analysis. The decisions have been made. We can always change things, but I don't see much merit in this going forward. It's only a step backwards, in my opinion. I mean, I still answer questions on a daily basis about what we've done to mitigate wildfire risk. And we've sent the insurance industry, as administration has, ad nauseum, all the fire smart activities, the awards we've won as a community, and they're still concerned about whether or not we're going to lose the community to a fire again. So the flood issue is just compounding that already, the large blight that's already on this industry from an insurance perspective. So it's time, I think, to take a leadership position, go above and beyond. I mean, the incremental cost of a half a meter when you're building a berm the question was asked by Councillor Balsam during the original multi-day debate, and the answer from administration was it was nominal. And that's why the decision was made. So in my opinion, I'm a little passionate about this because it's frustrating that we continue to have these discussions, but I think we just need to move forward. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to my presentation this evening.
Thank you, Bryce. Do we have any questions for Mr. Kumka from Council? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and through to the presenter. Thank you, Bryce, for coming again. It appears there is still challenges from the business community in getting flood protection in the downtown area. How is this affecting the tenants?
Well, it affects the tenants, it affects the landlords, so it affects the whole business community. It affects the ability for new investment as well, because there are many financial institutions that have provided terms for financing contingent on the availability of flood coverage. It's available, it's just not very cost effective. Like in insurance, pricing is always the key to success. We can always get it done, but it's whether or not it makes any economic sense to do that as a business. So there's an effect at all levels. Councillor Stroud.
Thank you. And as we have extended the flood mitigation again, is that having an effect in the downtown area also?
Well, I had a conversation with an underwriter on yesterday, and the response was, it's nice that all this mitigation has been done, but until it's 100% complete, we don't consider it to be in place at all. Because a system's a system's a system. If it's got a hole in the dike, they don't see it as being effective.
Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Ball?
Thank you, through the chair to Bryce. Thanks for your presentation, and I hear what you're saying. I guess I have one question for you. As an insurer, I'm not an insurer. Is there a difference between flood insurance at 1 in 100 or 1 in 200? Do you get refused at 1 in 100?
I don't know the specific answer. Through the chair to Councillor Ball, sorry. There's no hard and fast answer. It just improves the risk profile of the community if we have better protection. It's like the difference between if you're in a rural area and you don't have a fire hydrant and you're in a city where you do, your costs are going to be lower if you've got better protection. Similarly, they rate fire departments by the same kind of standard. So having enhanced protection is a possibility. I mean, throughout the 15 years that I've lived here and through all these deliberations with respect to flood mitigation since 2016, when we saw the Hangstone River overflow, we've done a lot of reading and tried to figure out how this stuff works. And I guess the conclusion in academia, at least, is that you can't predict floods and you can't predict flood severity. And that's a really big challenge. Like, we can cut down all the trees and we won't have a fire. Like, we understand that, or it's less likely for it to occur. But we really can't predict flood. It's one of those things that it can happen, but there's no predictability of severity or the frequency. So best case scenario is build a bigger dike, or in Winnipeg, where I'm from, build a bigger ditch to divert the water, to get it away from the assets that you're trying to protect.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know that I can 100% agree with build it bigger, because at a point, it's too big. I will have a question for administration. They won't be out, or you won't be able to answer it. So relative to one of your comments. So,
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair. Thank you for the presentation, Bryce. I guess being in the field that you're in, what was the conversation with the underwriters when they had heard that we were going to the 1 in 200? Obviously, you can't say for sure what they're going to come back with, but what was the conversation with them in what the future looked like based on us going above and beyond their protection?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, it's always good to show that there's enhancements to the protection. It's a better sell, or it's an easier sell. when you can go to the underwriters and say that we've gone above and beyond, rather than just gone to the 1 in 100. I mean, we can all look at the data that was collected during the last flood, and we only got to 248.95. But was that measuring station working? Was it covered in ice? Was it stuck? We don't know. I mean, a lot of the reporting stations went offline in the middle of the flood at different times because of different issues with them. So we don't really know what happened. All we know is that we had a whole bunch of water in the downtown. That thing we know for certain. So if we can show that we're going a little bit step further, and it's a half a meter, I guess it is a significant amount of extra material when you stretch it out over all the reaches. But it's just an easier sell. I mean, we have the unfortunate kind of record of having the largest insured loss in Canadian history with the wildfire. So we've already got that blight. That's not going to go away for a while. And then the flood kind of just compounded that issue. So it's just one of those things where if we can, it's just an easier sell if it's more enhanced than just the 1 in 100, which we're required to do effectively by the province.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Do you have any other questions for Mr. Kumka? Councillor Cardinal?
So I guess my question is through the chair to Bryce. So you're in favor of those 1.5 meters, or is that what I'm hearing?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, would be in favor of the 1 in 200 flood level, and I think it's 250.9 meters. I think that's the right number. There's been a lot of numbers over the years that have been thrown around. So the interesting thing about that number is it's a measure of one of the rivers, not all 5. So that's an Athabasca number. That's not I mean, we had water from the Hanging Stone in 2016 that kind of came out of nowhere. That wasn't unexpected, and that wasn't an ice jam related incident, which is what we historically have had. That was just a lot of rain over a very short period of time. So the challenge with flood is that it's figuring out where water is going to go is an incredibly challenging science. So we've got to try and do what we can do to minimize the risk. We're never going to completely remove it because the water will find a way in some way to get in. That's just the nature of how it works.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, so Councillor Cardinal?
I was going to ask the same thing Funky just asked. I forgot what it would cost. Well, anyways, okay, thanks.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Councillor Joko?
Thank you. Maybe he just asked a question. I wanted to know if if administration is investigating this, will it delay and defer the progress? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's unlikely that, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Ben Joko, I think it's unlikely that this investigation of this height would delay the projects significantly. I think there are other decisions that are yet to be made, particularly around Reach 6, which may have some impacts on the time frame for flood mitigation overall.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joko, CEO. Do you have any questions from council for Mr. Kumka? Councillor Cardinal.
No, it's actually not a question. It's more of a comment, I guess. Can I, at this point, we're at 250.4, right? Is that where at the level we're at with with the approval? The approval is 250.4. Is it 250.5?
I think the 1 or 200 will give us 250.9.
250. I know, but the 1 in 100 is what?
250.4?
0.4. Okay. So can if there's a flood,
So, Councilor Cardin, do you have any questions for Mr. Kumka? We can let him go and we can go to debate if you want. I think we'll just hold on for a minute. And
Yeah, no problem.
Through the chair to Councilor Cardinal, this chair is way more comfortable than that one, so I'll stay here all night if you want me to.
Hey, you take that chair with you, man. No problem, Bryce. I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for presentation, Mr. Kumka.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ball, do you want to put your motion on the floor?
It's a long one. Whereas administration has received previous direction from council to construct flood mitigation measures in the lower town site to a protection level that would keep our community safe for a 1 in 200 year flood event, this elevation has been determined to be 250.9 meters above sea level, which includes engineering safety factors. And whereas the province of Alberta has mandated that we protect our residents from flood by constructing flood mitigation measures that keep our community safe for a 1 in 100 year flood event, this elevation has been determined to be 250.5 meters above sea level, which includes engineering safety factors. And whereas the Fort McMurray flood of 2020 reached an elevation of 248.9 meters above sea level and is considered to be a 1 in 40 year flood event, and whereas administration sought input from residents on options to complete flood mitigation measures to a 1 in 200 year flood protection reaches 6, and work is currently underway to complete reaches 2, 3, 4, 5, and Taganova South to a 1 in 200 year flood event, various projects. Therefore, be it resolved that administration examine the cost differential of constructing to 250.5 meters versus 250.9 for the aforementioned outstanding reaches and report back to council with findings as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councilor Ball. Do you have someone second the motion? Councilor Benjoko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second the motion.
Thank you, Councilor Benjoko. Are there any other questions of council? Councilor Cardinal?
I guess this question is for, so administration come back to, Ken, I guess this would be to Ken. Administration, I guess, would come back and provide some information on costs that it would, take to build, that extra 0.5 meter, or 0.5 meters, yeah. So, I just wanted to say, if would it be? No, I feel that I'm okay with having the cost analysis, be in the motion, but I just wanted to provide maybe, how we had the big water bags. Would that be a cheaper option? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah. Maybe I'm off track there. But
through the chair, so I think what Councillor Cardinal you're referring to are temporary mitigation measures that have been used in the past. The intention with flood mitigation is we are headed in a direction of permanent flood mitigation, not temporary measures. So the direction now is to continue down the path of permanent structural mitigation versus any temporary means, and replacing currently existing temporary structures with permanent mitigation.
Okay. Thanks. I'll wait till some more conversation and I'll plan another question.
Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I just have a question for administration. Hi. Has the timeline to complete the flood mitigation been extended to 2024?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, the last update to council, I believe we had said that the flood mitigation would be completed in 2024. We'll be coming back in the future to discuss those a little bit further. That's currently what we're committed to. Thank you.
So there's a possibility it will be extended further out? Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure.
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, I think the realistically, as staff have mentioned, reporting back to council on 2024 was a timeline that was set in the past that didn't necessarily recognize additions to the program that have been made over the last number of years, and probably doesn't recognize the decision-making around the engagement on Reach 6 in particular, which could have significant impacts on timing. So as was referred to, the intention is to report back to council in the very short term on a bit of a broad overview about where we are in the mitigation program, the costs have been expended to date, and also some better understanding to the extent that we can on what the timeframes look like. I would say that council should expect that for full completion of permanent flood mitigation, that the timeline will go beyond 2024.
Thank you, CAO. I think you might have answered this question, but I didn't quite hear it. Will this motion halt the flood mitigation until the investigation has been completed?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, with it might for Reach 5, the construction contract for Reach 5 recently closed. If council permits, we could continue to work on awarding the contract while we examine the cost difference. For the other reaches, 2, 3, 4, and 6, it wouldn't delay things at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. I just did an extension of what Councillor Stroud said. I would like to make a friendly amendment then that we continue on with Reach 5, so we're not delaying flood mitigation, especially due to new information. I don't think we want to delay any more that we can. As Mr. Kumka said, I think the biggest issue with both residents and businesses downtown is flood insurance. And so that is a high priority of trying to get investment as well as people safe. The second thing, my second question is also to administration. What's that cost reflective of something to go back and relook at this? Are we looking at like full engineer drawings? I know in a side conversation, I was told that we had already done an examination of a 1 in 100. So would we be relooking at that? What are we looking at cost-wise to redo this? And to what extent is it I remember I had a conversation about parks, how we kind of eyeball it, or is this going to be a full analysis?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, it'll depend on which reach we're looking at. So Reach 6 is in the pre-design stage, so it's relatively easy to produce a cost estimate for a different elevation than what we're looking at now. So that's very little expense, and that can be accommodated within the existing budget there. For Reaches 3 and 4, some of that design scope was tied up in the waterfront park design, so we'd have to look at checking that one out a little bit further. Reach 2, it's pretty small, so that's the cost. Preparing the cost estimate could be done within existing funds.
So basically 2 reaches, the cost would be basically in 2 reaches.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Ball?
Thank you through the chair. And I was just going to kind of echo Councillor Weigel's comments relative to Reach 5. I mean, don't want to interrupt any work that's already underway. And Reach 5, I believe, is getting ready for award, so that can simply just be removed from the motion. Did we come up with a design, or have we decided what the design is for Reach 6? Is that road or berm? That's my question.
So for Reach 6, we will be coming to council in the future, probably likely early in the new year, to present the feedback we got from the public engagement and to ask council for guidance.
Fair enough. Thank you. So, no, they haven't done any design. Redesign. That's figuring out what to do.
So, Councillor Ball, as I understand, you would like just to remove Reach 5 from the motion?
Correct.
And Councillor Weigel, is that okay with you to meet your amendment? Okay, thank you. Councillor Bussier?
Yeah, through the chair to one of the presenters. Mr. Kumka had mentioned when Councillor Balsam had brought this forward that administration had said the difference between the 1 and 2, 1 and 1 and 1 and 2 was nominal. So that tells me that you would have had a figure at the time then if that was a response. So do you know what the difference is then?
Through the chair to Councillor Bussier's, we had a cost estimate prepared in 2020 for the 1 and 200, and we compared it against a cost estimate prepared in 2017 for the 1 and 100. If I don't remember the difference off the top of my head, but I think over the entire program that was outstanding at the time, I think it was not much more than 20 million over the entire program, but I will have to get back to you on what the difference was. But again, that was estimated in 2020 dollars.
Through the chair to Maureen, was it like a road on Reach 6 or a berm, or do you know?
I think it was a road. I'll have to go back and check.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bussier. Do you have any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Councillor Ball, do you have any closing comments? No. Then we'll call for a vote. If no one else has any other debate points or comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And against? And that's carried with 1 against. Oh, sorry. Should we read this amendment? So as long as everyone's clear in the motion that Reach 5 has been removed, so that 5 has been removed, so that the construction won't be slowed down. Moving on to item 8.3, I invite Councillor Bajoko to speak to her motion. Following that, we hear from delegates and questions from council. You can go ahead, Councillor Bajoko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, if there are no concerns with council or any concerns with my colleagues, I would like to defer this item to sometimes in January 2023. By then, I would have been fully informed and prepared with all the information that I need.
Thank you, Councillor Bajoko. Does any council have any objections to that? Councillor Cardinal?
No, I'm just gonna say right on. Okay, I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes this evening meeting.
That's it.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining this evening.